Yo, 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 what is going on, RoK Familia? It is your boy BN, aka Mr. Kingdom Builder, and today we are going to be discussing probably one of the single most important videos that I and probably anyone could ever make for Rise of Kingdoms, which is going to be giving you the best practices guide on how to be king or queen of a kingdom. Talking about what goes into it, what are the expectations, what are the responsibilities, what are you accountable for. We're going to break down all of the Lost Temple tools. We'll do those one by one. And then I'm going to get into probably what I believe is going to be the most important part of this video, which is the true job of a king and or queen. Yes, for my female fam out there. And then we're going to touch on a couple points going into that. I will have timestamps and chapter cards on the, I want to say, timeline part of the video. So again, if you want to go to a specific one, you can go to the description or just hover over with your mouse and head to where you want to. Before we get started, as always, if you enjoyed the content, make sure you sub, like, ring the notification bell. And of course, if you want to be a part of our enjoying our conversation, hit up the Discord. You can find a link to that in the pinned comment description right down below. Okay, so here we go. The best of the West, beast of the Easts, best practices guide to being a king or queen. Let's start with, first off, going into LT, right? So again, for those of you who may not know how to become a king or queen, in short, you just have to go and attack LT, right? It rotates per week, and and that's pretty much it, right? So you just have to make sure that you're capturing Lost Temple, which is in the middle of the map for Zone 3, and now we'll go into some of the options one by one. So we'll start with title. So titles are pretty important. So in short, right, you have ruler titles, right? King title, you get troop attack, troop defense, troop health. Queen, gathering speed, general, troop attack defense. Prime minister, resource production, building speed. Then you have defender titles, right? So it's kind of tiers, top down. Justice, which is troop attack, march speed. Duke, troop defense, training speed. 10% building speed for architect, scientist. 10% for gold gathering, and 5% for research. Then you have center titles, which is like negative titles. Trader, troop attack, defense negatives, beggar, production, exile, troop defense, troop health for slave, sluggard, march speed, training speed, and then fool, building speed, and research speed. Now let's read the information bubble. So it says for titles, the king, the queen, the general, and the prime minister can grant titles to any governor whose city is in the kingdom. The king can grant all titles. Governors with ruler titles can grant defender and center, right? So that's these ones, ruler. This basically allows for you to have multiple title givers in your kingdom. And we'll get into that in a moment. Each governor can bear one title for a given kingdom, but can simultaneously bear titles for several different kingdoms. Effects from identical titles do not stack. Kingdoms titles will be removed after immigration. Okay, so the short version here is that when you are king or queen of a kingdom, one of the important tasks you have to do is giving out titles. Usually this happens one of a few ways. The most obvious way is that you would do this in kingdom chat, right? You have people that ask for titles. You give them the title. You set a certain amount of time that they get it. Usually it averages 5 minutes in most kingdoms. And then, because remember, you just have to get the title. You start your building queue, or you start your research queue, or you start your bulk training queue, and then you go ahead and then you're good, right? Then you can give the title up. So typically you allot a 5-minute window on average, right? Just depends. And that's at max. And then if the player that gets the title tells you that they're done with it, or telling you that you can give it up, then obviously you can do it faster, right? If you're really on point, you give a title, it should take 60 seconds, maybe 30 seconds to really click what you need to click, because you should already be ready. And then you do your stuff, you give the title up. But usually there's a professional courtesy that goes along with that. So typically you do this in a group chat room, right? So this would be a group chat that you would make, and you would add people to this group chat, not really in Kingdom chat. Some people do it in Kingdom chat, but what I have found is that it's most efficient to do it in a group chat. So you just post in Kingdom chat, you'll send some mails out, alliance mails, Discord announcements. You'll just tell people, hey, reach out to this person or to these groups of people. They'll add you to the title giver chat, whatever you want to name it, and that's where you'll go and request your titles throughout the day. And again, just as a note, it is good because you have essentially up to 4 people that can help out. But more importantly, you can have 3 rotational people that are helping out with titles, right? That you would designate queen, general, and prime minister. So these are really important to make sure that you have players that are willing to help rotate, meaning that you may set up blocks. Sometimes having a schedule that you do on a spreadsheet, for example. Just depending on how organized your kingdom's in. I've been in a kingdom where they have a spreadsheet and they have 2-hour block windows and people will sign up for them. And then you're able to give these titles out. Sometimes you will do it with just one alliance where you're rotating alliance per alliance. Sometimes you would use a King's Alliance. Essentially what that is where it's an alliance that connects to Lost Temple, and you basically just have all the officers and leaders on alt accounts go into the kingdom, or excuse me, go into this alliance, and then they just fill the spots out. That way, instead of relying dependent or heavily on one alliance having the necessary amount of officers or people that can be promoted within that alliance, to a ruler title where you have that type of 24/7 coverage, right? Because remember, if it's just one alliance, that's you plus your, dear Lord, what is it, 6, 8 officers now? Let me double check this in case, since I'm slowly forgetting right now. What am I doing here? No, I did the wrong thing. It's this, and then it's members. Yeah, okay, good. So it's 8 officers. Let's make sure I was right there. Right, so just bearing in mind that, your 8 officers, you may not always have someone on, right, for that 24/7 coverage. You may not have additional officers. Maybe you have less than 8. Maybe you have 8 exact. You may not have more than 8 to where you can promote people constantly, right? And so if you just have more people you can use, regardless of the position they're in, that's kind of the benefit of doing something like a King's Alliance. But again, it just depends on how your kingdom wants to operate. This is just one way. I've done it both ways. I've seen it done both ways. I've seen it done where players will join, officers and other leaders will just join whatever alliance currently holds king and do it that way. It just depends. I myself prefer running a King's Alliance because I think there's just a lot more pros than cons when it comes to time management and just being as efficient as possible. Then we go to buffs. Buffs is going to be, right, once the king activates a kingdom buff, the buff will be received by all governors who belong to the kingdom and whose cities are in the kingdom. Buffs are pretty simple. You usually time these out with the best of runes, right? So you would do something like, again, you hit LT and you're waiting for, and or any others, right? And you're basically waiting to get the best of the best runes, right? So you're waiting to get the best rune for training speed, the best rune that has the highest percentage for research, the best rune that has the highest percentage for building, etc., right? You get the picture. And once that rune drops, right, if it does, you would hit that specific buff. Maybe you'll do rotational buffs where you don't care if a certain rune drops, and you'll just always do it where maybe you'll go building, research, training, right, in that order. Maybe an event comes around, like strategic reserves, that's partially dependent on resource production. So maybe you'll pop resource production, so that way more players in the kingdom can get more strategic reserve resources, right, or chests for their inbox. So it does just depend on how you do it. There's a couple ways on how you can approach it. I just kind of gave you what I feel to be the 3 most obvious ones, where you're hitting buffs based on hitting the max rune, or you do a standard rotation of it, or again, you'll work in favorable weather here and there, which is a little bit more optional. So I guess technically it's probably 2 to 3 if you consider that for how you can approach doing buffs. But if anything, I hope that helps. Okay, then we'll get to gifts. Gifts is pretty straightforward. One of the things I like to do with gifts is that you have a few options. So let's read this first. Kingdom gifts will be reset at the end of every temple contest, right? That means they reset every week. The king may distribute these gifts to any governor whose city is in the kingdom. The king can click on the city of a governor to whom he wishes to grant a gift, enter the distribution page, and distribute accordingly. Once gifts have been distributed, they will be delivered to governors by mail. Governors can only receive 1 gift after each temple contest. So, how I usually like to do gifts is every week you can find, which players have been contributing to the kingdom the most in their own respective ways, and you distribute gifts based on those. Usually a portion of those may go to members in management, and then that's kingdom-wide, and then a portion may just go to, active contributing players. That's one way you can do it. The other way you can do it is each alliance that rotates, you just are allowed to use the gifts on anyone in your specific alliance. Granted, you have an equal rotation, then that way each alliance gets an opportunity to distribute gifts to their players. You can do it based on contribution, the first way, like I said. You can do it where you also make sure that each person gets a gift every single time. So let's say you have, as an example, right, because there's technically, what am I looking at, 18 gifts that you give out, that you can give out a week. You could do it where you just go down the list and every single person gets a gift, right? That's in zone 3, right? Or amongst the active fighting alliances. And yeah, it may take a couple weeks, but that way you know every single person is going to get a gift in some way, shape, or form, right? You're kind of going with like a wide net coverage. So again, a couple ways that you can approach. And I want to point out that if any of you from Kingdoms have certain specific ways that you guys go about doing any of the parts that I'm talking about in this video, I would love to hear. So let me know in the comments below. Then we get to males. Now, males, in my opinion, I probably should say this for last because I could talk about this for a year. Males are by far the most important. I say this because sending King's males will message every single player in your kingdom. The reason why this is so important is because this is your number one option towards informing, educating, keeping people up to date, and letting them know just what's going on in your kingdom that you have access to. This can be used in a multitude of ways. You can use this to inform people on weekly events that are coming up, right? Like let's say that weekly events restart every, let's give you an example. I'll give you a real-time example here. So I go to event calendar, right? So here you go. It goes every Tuesday, right, is when those are going to reset. So you're able to go ahead and check what events are coming up for that week. You might go through and say, oh, okay, here, this event's going, and you write a mail that basically covers the week in its entirety. And then you basically do this event, here's how you can max the event, 1 to 2 sentences, right? Or you keep it short. Here's this event, here's how you can be efficient in this event. Those are the types of mails that you want to work on, where you're informing, you're educating, you're talking about good gathering tips, good best practices for leveling your account, PvP tips for PvE, and then for PvP. Talking about having people join the Discord to try and get as much conversion rate from the players that are in your kingdom on there as much as possible. So that way you can take advantage and use those things for KVK when they come up, especially being able to get into voice, which is obviously something you can't do at the moment, only relying in-game. You send state of affair updates, right? What's going on in the kingdom? Treat it like a newsletter. Treat it like a magazine. Treat it like a community, a real community, where you are trying to build something that is grassroots, that's organic, that is your kingdom in its entirety. And really treat it like that. Trust me when I say the results will yield themselves and hopefully speak for themselves. But try to be creative, right? Think outside the box. We used to do something where we would look at the kingdoms that are within our continent, kind of prepping for one, and we would send like a mail every 2 or 3, like 2 weeks, right? Something like that. And we would just give an update or to a degree on how are we stacking up versus the other kingdoms and give a nice little breakdown. People like reading that type of stuff. And that's one of the things that I think is so undervalued and underused, which is how to send King's mails appropriately. A lot of King's mails I'll see are, oh, hey, we got one event coming up, or hey, we're doing some KVK prep, or hey, we just popped a buff, and no one really treats it like you're trying to build a community. And that's something that I can tell you, if you are able to do that, if you're able to understand the true value of how important that is, of how important the words are, especially if you can format well and it doesn't come across like a wall of text, how impactful mails can be, trust me, you will be so much farther ahead of the game. Okay, now we're going to get to, what's the next one here? Kings, right? So this just kind of shows you recent kings. It's more just kind of historical reference on who got it that week. And then let's talk about immigration. So immigration is pretty important, and there's a couple things here, right? So you have same season immigration cap, and then you have cross-season immigration cap. An example of same season is your season 1, you have season 1 coming. Your season 2, you have season 2 coming. Cross season is your season 1, you have season 2 coming. Your season 2, you have season 3 coming. Your season 3, you have conquest coming. Right? Obviously, you want to make sure that you read up on the details so that you know what it applies to. But in short, it says governors who meet the requirements for immigration can use passport pages to permanently immigrate to another kingdom. The king may select a maximum power limit for immigrants, and governors whose total power exceeds this limit will be unable to immigrate to that kingdom. Essentially meaning that if someone's 25 million and one, they can't come. With an exception, which we'll talk about in a moment. If a kingdom has no king, the Lost Temple will automatically select the lowest immigration power limit. So you can see the options here, 25, 35, 45, 55, 65, no cap. To give you an idea of how you would want to go about setting your immigration limit, and this is just an average, in my opinion, kind of general rule of thumb, is you calculate your top 300 players and you get a median average. So an example would be, if you total up all 300 players, and let me see if I can't even, I don't think I could show you on this because it's already looking at my screen, but let's say you have 300 players, and I'll just do this on a calculator as an example. Oh, it will show up, cool. Okay, so let's say our top 300 power is 50, let's just say 15 billion, right? So we'll do, is that million? Okay, I think that's right. So let's say 15 billion. We'll divide this by 300. Okay? So that means that my average median power is 50 million per my 300 players, right? So what that means is that if I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to set a cap, I probably would set the cap at 55 million. Why? Because sure, it's a little above 50, but I know that we have more players than that are stronger, in order to where the likelihood of us getting invaded by people that are around that power, even if it's by a bunch, really would not be that impactful because we basically control the higher number range. This is one way you can approach it, where you have to calculate the sum power and then you divide it by the top 300 players, right? And so you basically have to calculate your 300 total power. Other ways you can do it is if you just have a bunch of whales and you feel really strong, then sure, you can 65 mil it. If you want, you can no cap it. Again, I'm a little iffy there because I think you just kind of have to have enough people. Even if you feel strong about the example I just showed, and maybe you're saying I have no problem going to 65 mil if our median average is 50. It's really up to you, right? This is general rule of thumb on how you approach things. Because remember, you do have special immigration, which we'll touch on that here now. So special immigration chances refresh once per month in the beginning, and we'll just read some information here. Alongside regular immigration, kingdoms can now accept governors with power that meets or exceeds the current entrance requirement via special immigration. Only the king can approve applications for special immigration. Once approved, the applicant will receive a notification mail. Once confirmed, he or she can immigrate to that kingdom. Governors who apply for special immigration must meet all other mandatory requirements in addition to the power requirement. Special immigration chances can be accumulated to a maximum of 3 times. At the beginning of each month, kingdoms gain 1 chance. So essentially you get 12 per year. Only successful special immigration will use up special immigration chances. This, to me, is just an extra point that kind of already goes without being said. Special immigration applications are effective for 3 days and are displayed based on time of submission, right? So in order. Special immigration will not count towards the kingdom's cross-season immigration quota. So, in short, right, if you're looking, remember, anyone can apply, but you don't have to use your chances out. This also gives you an opportunity if you want to message these people, right? So you can message, and I like that you can see who's applying. I could go into a whole other spiel about this that I think they can really expand on. But in short, this is where you're able to do these, to use these. Again, one of the things I'll tell you about special immigration is that if you don't know who's applying, take the time to interview these people. Draft up an application on Google Forms. Takes 10 minutes, if that. And you send it to everyone who is applying. And you say, hey, thank you so much for applying. If you wouldn't mind taking some time out of your day to fill this out, and then please message me back once you do. Something simple. And try to get a gauge on them. And I would say, then it probably would be good to set up an interview, right? Where you do a voice interview with them. It probably would be good to do a background check on them, meaning that you're taking time out of your day to go and look at the kingdoms and alliances they've played in, so you can go and ask around for people that are in that alliance and anyone else outside of that alliance to see if they know this person and kind of how they were there. Why? Because you get 12 of these a year. You don't want to waste them on people or players that are just going to come in and wreak havoc or ruin and not be down for how your kingdom is set up and what the goals and expectations and values are that hopefully you hold dear. So don't be lazy, do some due diligence, and put that work info. You know what I mean? Yada I mean? That's what I'm saying. So be ready. I wanted to say fool, but I kind of slipped up there. Okay. So dope sauce. Let's now move to Kingdom Honor. So Kingdom Honor is, again, kind of just a historical reference. It basically is just right here. Records will be made if the kingdom captures a Crusader fortress belonging to another kingdom and holds it until the end of the current Lost Kingdom season, and then vice versa if someone captures it on you and holds it, right? So, again, I guess you can use this to kind of see what the plus minus is, I guess, for, and then what places you rank in. So yeah, nice stuff. And then we get to skills. So skills, there's no blurb here, but basically it costs gems to activate these, right? So increase, so we got tax, imprison, leader, and exile. Tax increases resource gathering speed by 30% for 8 hours for all governors of this kingdom. While the skill is active, 1% of all resources gathered will be given as taxes to the king, up to a limit of 12 million per resource, cooldowns 20 hours. Lock the location of a single city's governor, disabling city teleport for 10 minutes. Cannot target your own alliance's members or kings from other kingdoms. Okay, sounds good. Leader, active skill. I like how they're all active skills, though. Why do we have to say that? Choose a troop in your kingdom to act as the leader troop. While this skill is active, the leader troop will grant a 3% bonus to all damage dealt by all nearby troops from the same kingdom for 10 minutes. This skill only enhances troops in rallies fighting on the world map and will not enhance troops in a garrison. Exile. A city with an active peace shield will be forced to randomly teleport to their initial province when entering Lost Kingdom. If the city does not have a peace shield on, then it will take 5% increased damage for the next 30 minutes. Cannot be used on governors from the same kingdom. So in short, right, with tax, again, this is probably, I guess, overall the better one to use constantly, right? Because you're just getting constant increased gathering speed. Imprison, sure, if you have any rogues. Leader, right, says choose a troop in your kingdom to act as a leader troop. While skill is active, the leader troop will grant a 3% bonus to all damage dealt by all nearby troops from the same kingdom for 10 minutes. So someone will have to tell me if this is usable in KVK. That's probably the only question that I really have. But I would imagine all nearby troops from the same kingdom for 10% all damage. Yeah, so I guess you'd use this on rallies, open field would be my guess. Again, someone's more than happy to let me know in the comments down below. Exile, right? Obviously good if you're what seems to be also potentially dealing with rogues, because it says will be forced to randomly teleport to their initial province when entering Lost Kingdom. So I'm assuming that's the Zone 4 would be the initial province when you're in LK. And then if the city does not have a peace shield on, they'll take 5% increased damage for the next 30 minutes. We teleport to their initial province. Yeah, so I'm assuming Exile could be used on enemies, because it says cannot be used on governors from the same kingdom. So I'm assuming this could be used in KVK, but for your opponents in this case. And if that's the case, dope. Love it. I guess something you would use if you're trying to remove, what does it say here? Force members. I guess you're trying to remove someone who's maybe going to rally, or if there's a should be active person on at that immediate moment in time, and maybe it's an off hour or off window hour for you. I would be really curious to see when for leader and exile, for those of you that do use these, to know what specific scenarios or situations you use them in. So please let me know in the comments down below, because I am curious. Okay, now we kind of have got through all the tools that are going into what you would do as a king queen. Now we're going to touch on what I think to be the most important part of this video, which is the true job of a king queen. The true job is a lot more than what you're just doing and managing within the Lost Temple tools and support options. You are, in short, a manager. You are someone who is there to set expectations, to be consistent, to be a leader, to be a beacon, to be a role model within your kingdom. meaning that you are also responsible and accountable for all players within your kingdom, whether you like it or not. These are what I truly believe to be minimum expectations that you as a king or queen have to be able to do. This means that you need to understand that if you're going to lead an alliance, you have to know that these are things that come with that title. It's not just you leading your alliance and you only caring for your players or you only caring for your group's players. You should care for everyone. In whatever capacity your kingdom has defined their route and their goals and objectives as in that kingdom. But you should be a steward to everyone in your kingdom, regardless if they're in your alliance, a part of your group or not. This means that everyone is your priority. You have no excuses. By extension, what this really means is that you need to make yourself available. If you are king or queen, you need to understand that your job in its entirety really is to manage, is to be customer support, is to be tech support, is to pretty much be a therapist at times. And unless, of course, albeit you are sending mails and you're specifically defining titles and areas or point of contacts for people in the kingdom to reach out to, then, you can maybe take a little bit lesser of a percentage off there. However, most of the time, if you're a king, players in your kingdom will randomly message you with questions. This is a part of being a king or queen. It's a lot more than just what it may seem like or what other alliances may or what other people that you spoke to may portray it like. If you're watching this video, I'm telling you what a true king and a true queen should be doing for their kingdom, right? When it comes to just minimum expectations. Now, obviously, if you just don't care and you're just the type of king or queen who just wants to do whatever they want, well, then I'm sure that will show. And I doubt that you're probably going to have a lot of people wanting to stick around. So again, I hope that this video really helps those of you who want to be king or queen and understanding that really for the most part, it's a full-time job, right? You have to put in significant hours in order to do it. And obviously, the more people you have, the bigger team you have that can support you, the better that it's going to be. So that is where I leave you. And I hope that this video helped in some, if not a lot of capacities. And I really would love to hear your thoughts, your feedback on what I've talked about. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Why or why not? Am I speaking facts to the populace and just spreading the good Lord's will? Let me know. But yeah, that's pretty much going to be it for me. So I'd like to try and continue the series maybe in some capacity, but I thought this would be a good kind of starter foundation video. So that's it for me. As always, until next time, I'll catch you later.